in not so many years, the retailers who are able to apply physical AI in their stores will be the ones who will be able to beat their competitors and grow more. And those without will be lag behind and eventually will have problems competing.
Ramir, everyone is talking about AI agents and autonomous retail, but most retailers still struggle to answer basic questions like where is the product and if it is really available or what is exactly happening on the sales floor. Are we really focusing on the right problems or are we just running behind AI for the sake of it and not really solving for store visibility?
Well, I don't think that we are talking too much about AI. I really think that AI is providing amazing value, but basically on digital context. So those contexts where the data is already available in a native digital format. And in those environments where the data is already available, AI is proving to be an amazing tool in so many markets. What is happening is that in physical spaces, in physical environments, AI it is more difficult to apply because the data is not there sometimes. So if you cannot train AI with data, AI becomes useless. So it's not that we talk too much about AI, is that we need to enable physical AI, AI in physical spaces, in physical, in the particular case, for instance, of retail stores, right? And for that, we need to put into place the sensors that allow to obtain all that data that will be applicable to AI. So answering your question is not that we are talking too much about AI, is that we need to do a step prior to that, which is generating all that data that AI needs in order to provide value in physical context. And I think this is precisely what Gray Orange and Keonn are doing by working together. Keonn is providing that truth layer, the sensor layer with enabling the data, making the data available, and then Gray Orange is adding all the execution layer and workflow layer that allows to take meaningful action based on that data.
Yep. But there is still a lot of misconception in the industry, Ramir, around, if the inventory is available, is if it's visible and if it is executable, right? Like from a store execution standpoint, where do you think the market is going wrong? Where do you think retailers are going wrong in leveraging, sensor data, in leveraging, they've invested so much in POS systems, in inventory management systems, right? Like ERPs and even like forecasting systems, but they're still struggling to answer basic questions. Where do you think things are going off?
Well, I think that the problem is a little bit the same, that the answer to some basic questions is difficult for some retailers because they lack the data to answer those questions. For instance, a simple question: do I have this product in the store? Well, if a retailer is not using RFID and they took the last stock count 6 months ago, it's difficult to answer that question because you will be relying on real data taken 6 months ago. If the retailer is using RFID with handheld readers for periodic stock counts, like for instance, once a week or once every 2 weeks, the data that we'll have is a real data taken those 2 weeks or 1 week ago, but it's not real time. So if retailers want to take decisions in real time, which is what customers request, when you are entering a store and you're looking for a product, you want an answer in real time. Where is the product I'm looking for, right? I want it, and I want it now. So if retailers need to move to real time, it means that they need real time inventory data and real time location data, because sometimes we are only thinking about inventory, especially when we talk about RFID, but location is extremely important, because if I know that the product is in the store but I don't know where it is, how can I bring it to the customer? Or how do I know which is the store associate closer to the product to bring it quickly to the customer? So inventory and location are much more important than what they seem, because if we have them in real time, the retailer can take decisions in real time and serve the customer in real time, which is what the customer expects.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Ramin, RFID has been around for years, or rather decades, right? But the industry is now considering it as a strategic infrastructure, or basically a strategic arm to basically enable autonomous stores of the future, right? Why do you think the change is happening now than ever before?
I think that mm, RFID has done a great job with handheld readers to provide inventory data, and that inventory data is accurate data that allows the retailer to know with some precision which products they have, um, and that enables some important use cases. The change that is happening now is that with solutions like the one we provide together, Grayer and Keonn, based on real-time inventory and location data, this it's 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 implies an extraordinary change because it enables new retail strategies that were not possible before. I will put you an example. Fast fashion. Fast fashion needs to be very fast, right? And typically, many retailers of fast fashion have put a lot of product in the store, right? And then you see the stock packed with products, right? Now, some retailers of fast fashion are trying to project an image of their stores of more exclusivity, more luxury, more special. And for that, they need to reduce the amount of products. You cannot have the store packed with products to portray that image. Well, but to do that, you cannot do that without real-time replenishment, because you will have many out of stocks if you have few products on the sales floor. RFID with overhead real-time inventory and location enables that. It enables the retailer a new strategy. And this is a game changer. It's not only a tool, it's an enabler. RFID, it's an enabler of new retail strategies. Not only that, RFID enables new customer experiences. A customer eventually can get into the store, look for a product, and very quickly find where that product is, because we have real-time location. And with the app of the retailer, the customer can locate in his or her mobile phone where the product is. So the real change is that RFID is enabling new retail strategies and is enabling new customer experiences. And this is what changes. It's not simply an operational tool. It's an enabler for retailers to do things that previously were impossible for them to do.
Yep, absolutely. And I also remember, like, when a couple of years back, basically, when you would even present to a customer saying, we can achieve 98, 99% real time accuracy, right? We can get you location precision of 3 to 5 feet or stuff like that. It would almost, like, people would like not believe it. And the reaction we would get usually is, we've heard those sales pitches a number of times. It doesn't work in reality. In fact, if you go back a few years, overheads were at 70-80% accuracy levels. Right now they're at 98-99% accuracy levels.
Yes.
um what do you think has changed from that perspective? I think, Akash, that's a question to you as well. What do you think changed from what was being done differently earlier, because of which the accuracy levels were 70 to 80%, and now we're seeing upwards of 98% accuracy levels, both in terms of location and count? Maybe Akash, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I think when you look at raw RFID data, I'm sure that hasn't changed. I think what has changed over last few years is how do we really process RFID data from multiple sensors and put some intelligence to it to kind of start getting data that is a lot more contextualized to that particular situation, that particular store. And of course, I think the hardware is becoming better, the tag quality is becoming better, and likes of that. So I think it's a combination of those three things. Being able to intelligently process the data and the hardware quality as well as tag quality becoming better over last few years.
Yep. And I think if I just add to that, I think what something interesting that sort of Keonn did, Ramir, was, the packaged unit itself, right? Earlier, it was a lot more difficult to manage the deployments because, you had separate antennas and readers and like, but I think Keonn did something interesting by sort of creating a packaged unit with, tell us more about that, why do you think that is a key reason why you know the performance of the readers itself has gone up, or do you think there is more to it?
Well, I think as Akash said, that the improvement in performance is because of the tags, because of the hardware, but also because of the software and the processing of that data. Everything together is what is allowing us to get those 99% read rates and that accuracy in location. I think that from the hardware perspective, the products that existed before were general purpose products. They were basically readers trying to read as much as possible. The change came when we did something different. We asked multiple retailers, what would be your ideal overhead real-time inventory system? What would be needed in a real-time inventory and location system in order for you to adopt it? And then we received a lot of feedback. And that feedback was not only about reading, it was also about easiness of installation. It was also about cost of installation. It was about electrical consumption. It was about things as simple as managing. If you are providing real-time inventory and you are, I don't know, imagine deploying 60 units per store across 1,000 stores, that means 60,000 units. You need tools for managing all that fleet. It's not simply to put hardware, because the hardware at some point, once in a while, will have an issue, and you need to address that issue. So this is not the main message here is that it's not simply hardware, it's a solution. It's a whole solution that we have built together with also with Gray Orange, obviously, because each of us is providing layers of that solution. But that solution is not only hardware; it's the management of the hardware, is the installation of the hardware, is the management of the installation of the hardware, is how to avoid errors during installation. All this tool or toolkit is what makes it affordable and reliable.
Yep, absolutely. I think there is also a lot of, beyond RFID, I think there's a lot of excitement on technologies like ultra wideband or, BLE technology. Then there is, camera vision coming in the mix, right? These are all very different sensory data sources, right? Ramir, in your perspective, or how do you see each of them playing various roles when it comes to autonomous stores?
Well, first of all, I see them combined together. So they are not alternative technologies. They are technologies that by working together, they can enable more use cases for the retailers and also enable new experiences for customers. So RFID is great at identifying the items. There's no competing technology now in terms of cost versus performance for that. RFID is great for tracking the items of the store and knowing where they are. But then, for instance, vision is great at combined with RFID for obtaining better location of the items. So the combination with RFID and vision is very good for that. Additionally, vision is great for locating the fixtures across the store and also for tracking behavior, the behavior of customers. So it's completely complementary. Ultra wideband, for instance, is like an indoor GPS, right? It allows to locate things with high precision and obviously with the authorization of the customer that allows to guide the customer. For instance, with ultra wideband, we can guide a customer to a product. We can tell the customer, you're here, the product is there, this is the path to the product. So, but the beauty here is that the combination of all these technologies is what will bring in the future new use cases. And that's why we talked about sensor fusion. We are already merging these different sensors in our Keonn equipment. And this together with the layers added by Gray Orange through the G-Store app, this can enable things that are amazing. For instance, I will put you another example. Another example is, imagine a customer is looking for a product. With ultra wideband, with RFID, we know the location of that product. With ultra wideband, we know the location of the associate closer to that product. And with the combination of ultra wideband and RFID, we bring the product with minimum time to the customer is satisfied, the customer buys the product. So this kind of user experiences will be available pretty soon, sooner than we think, by sensor fusion and combining all these technologies together.
Yep. Akash, in your perspective, how do you see, these various building blocks come together, right? We've heard you talk about digital twin and how basically we want to see a live, replica of the store and it as close to real time. But where do you think the technology, is not supporting or is supporting? Where do you think the struggle is and where do you think it's just achievable at this moment?
Yeah, I think once you have all of these technologies or infrastructure available in the store, I think this should become fairly easy. I think the challenge today is that for any hardware infrastructure, it takes time to kind of get into all the places possible. And hence, I think, as Ramir said, a combination of vision, RFID, and ultra wideband can provide you pretty much real-time digital twin, right? And once you start getting a real-time digital twin, I think you can enable a lot of these experiences. I think there is in the industry, there's going to be a path towards that, right? As the store infrastructure, I think today, if you look at store infrastructure, by default, they have security cameras. We've started seeing, fairly good adoption of overheads to kind of do along with that. So there's a lot of opportunity of fusing the data of security cameras with overhead RFID, right? And as the infrastructure move towards having ultra wideband and likes of that, as well, I think fusing those three technology can start giving us a fairly, I would say, near real-time digital twin. And once you have that, I think those experiences can be enabled pretty quickly. Of course, there are aspects that need to be taken care of around privacy, around security, and likes of that. So yeah, I think those are the things that need to happen to kind of get there. But as Ramir said, I think it's going to happen faster than what all we have imagined a couple of years back, both because I think the sensors are starting to kind of perform the level that they need to be. Plus, I think, it's an exponential growth of technology maturity because as you get more data, you train better models and then, you get better at it. So I think as we see more and more deployments happening, we'll see a lot of application level maturity, coming in. But it's all about, can you really create a near real-time digital twin which represents customer, associate, and inventory in a best possible way.
Yeah, but Akash, most retailers, when you bring in so much advancement in technology conversation, right, with them, most retailers are still struggling with basics, right? And for them it almost seems like unachievable, both because of cost reasons as well as ROI reasons. Of course, with edge computing getting a lot more mature, camera vision technology, and edge computing in combination with cloud sort of enables a lot more optimized cost use cases. But some retailers, when you talk to the big fishes in the retail industry, you hear them say that we tried this 10 years ago, and it was a $1 million project, and it didn't get us the ROI and stuff like that, even though now the technology has really evolved. What would your message to be would be to the retailers that have had that experience in the past and have maybe burnt fingers from that perspective?
Yeah, I would say what I've seen is that, and 10 years back or even a couple of years back, the use for RFID was supposed to be just inventory count, right? That seems to be the primary use case. And I think at that level, you would struggle with a clear ROI in likes of that, because that might not be the only use case that gets you to say, okay, yeah, let's go and take such a large transformation. But I think where industry has reached today, and Keonn and Grunge had a critical part in that as well, that we're talking about changing how operations, run, changing how customer experience run, right, by these technologies. So I think we have to be very aware that to go through such level of infrastructure transformations in the store, there has to be a view of that, this will enable how stores operate and how customer behavior, kind of works in the store. Once that conviction is there, I think you'll see a lot more adoption on the technology.
Yep, Ramir, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I fully agree with Akash.
Yeah. Ramir, maybe one question to you in terms of, there is the reason why passive RFID tags became adopted a lot more than any other alternate technology was because of the cost aspect of it, right? Because the business case justification made a lot of sense. We are hearing, BLE technology is shaping up well. It, of course, right now is unlocking a lot of use cases which are parallel, right? We're hearing use cases like case level, pallet level tracking, and tracking across the supply chain, while item level RFID is still with passive tags, right? But then there are analysts in the industry who sometimes claim that BLE might actually replace passive RFID tags because the cost aspect of it is going to get a lot more lean. Like, do you see that as a threat? Or maybe what is your strategy around that?
Okay. Well, first, technologies evolve very quickly. So what may be today is not a replacement to RFID might be in the future. Who knows, right? At this moment, we don't see BLE replacing um, RFID for multiple reasons. One of them is cost, and others are functional. But we see BLE playing a role in in applications where you need very, very, very accurate location, and you can assume a bigger cost of the tag, like for instance in pallet tracking and similar. So we see that there will be market, we believe, for both technologies. We don't see them one replacing the other. Although in the future, we never know. Okay, it will depend on the evolution of the two technologies. Our strategy is very simple. Our strategy is a sensor fusion strategy. So we are adopting multiple technologies in our RFID, in our solutions for retailers. These include RFID, but also other technologies. And whenever we see that Bluetooth provides a value that enables certain use cases that are important for retailers, we will also adopt it. And we will merge it with the rest of the technologies that we are using. That's our strategy. Our strategy is a sensor fusion strategy.
Yep. Ramin, and RFID has had a long evolution in terms of starting with cycle counting and and as Akash said, and then it has slowly moved into receiving processes, replenishment processes, clienteling processes. It has slowly made its way through, right? But there is still some retailers are still looking at very early stages while others are looking at very, very advanced cases, right? So the autonomy that every retailer is imagining is different. Are you seeing some sort of pattern with various regions or various industry types in terms of the use cases that are being demanded? Or maybe asking the question differently, are there any unique use cases that are being demanded in certain parts of the world which the others aren't demanding as much?
Well, yes, there are use cases that, if we talk about retail, for instance, the use cases for fast fashion retailers are different than the use cases for luxury retailers. For instance, overhead real-time inventory for a fast fashion retailer, it's very important for instance, for real-time replenishment. It's also important for other use cases, but one of the main ones is replenishment. For a luxury retailer, replenishment is not a problem. The problem for a luxury retailer is that if that customer is requesting a dress that whose price is $2,000, we need to find the color and size in less than 30 seconds if possible. And we need to know where it is across the store, because the store can be pretty big, can have different floors. So the use cases are different depending on the retailer. But there are many of them that are common for all of them. Okay. So in these situations, what is important is that the application that the store associates will use, which is the gray orange store application, is able to adapt to the different use cases depending on each retailer. And for Keonn, we need to be able to deliver the data that is needed for each type of use case. That's what we need to do.
Yep. Akash, any patterns that you are hearing in the industry in terms of the use cases being demanded across retailers? Like, for example, there are some retailers for who theft is a major problem, while for others, like for example, a footwear retailer might not be worried as much about theft because their wall only displays left shoes. Who's taking away all the left shoes from the store, right? So, what are you seeing there in terms of demand?
Yeah, I think there are, certain fairly advanced use cases, especially when you start kind of talking about replenishment from warehouses to stores, starting talking about uh, placement optimization of SKUs in the store, what to put on the sale window, what's the size curves that you want to put, kind of determining those kind of things. Even visual merchandising, if you start kind of understanding the interaction of customer with the inventory, there are aspects of visual merchandising that can be optimized. So yeah, I think leveraging the behavioral data along with the location data of the inventory gives I would say insight into a lot of different intelligent use cases, which might not directly, I would say, serve customer experience, but definitely would serve retailer to reduce, discounting, increase the I would say interaction of that particular SKU with the customer, overall reduce times where you're completely stock out in the store. I think one of the use cases we have been spending time on is there are things that are cyclic in nature. For example, if you place a certain SKU in a certain part of the store, the sale of that SKU is very different, right? Now, let's say if you place it in certain part of the store, but you do not replenish that particular SKU from warehouse in a certain quantity, you're going to place it, but not going to get enough value because you're going to run out of inventory. So I think, there are now proactive cycles that you can run that if you decide that 2 days later, you're going to change this SKU from, let's say, location A to location B. Location B is a lot more popular location than location A, then you do want to proactively trigger replenishment from warehouse because your kind of sales curve for the day is going to change, right? So I think there are a lot of proactive intelligence that you can start leveraging once you kind of combine different pieces of information coming from RFID, from visual, kind of analytics and POS and likes of that.
Hypothetically, if we, in fact, now this is not even a hypothesis, now this is becoming a reality, right? So if we could train an AI agent which has visibility to every item, every fixture, every store operation, right? Movement of every associate in the store, what are the decisions that would most benefit the retailer if it were to come to an ROI perspective, right? What are the top use cases that the retailers would be looking for? Ramit, let's go with you first.
Wow, this is a very interesting question because, in fact, all that we are doing together, Greer and Janas, is enabling the application of AI in retail. It's physical AI. And when you have all this data available coming from these different sensors, there are multiple things that you can do with AI. For instance, you can create a virtual shopping assistant for the customers. The customers can have in the app of the retailer, right, an application that allows them to shop around the store, to find the products, etc., that runs on artificial intelligence. They can even ask, maybe, where is this product? I'm looking for this product. And then answer in natural language to that customer. That's one possibility. Another possibility is for store associates, an AI tool for store associates. For instance, the store associate arrives at the store and asks the AI tool, what should I prioritize today? Which product should I replenish? Which things should I be careful about today? And then the AI can organize even the work of that person. But third, we can be more ambitious, and we can provide with AI. We can help the retailer design better the stores. We can have an AI tool or agent that tells the retailer, listen, in this store, this is working very well. In that store also, you should change the layout on this store because you will be able to help customers better, people sell more, etc., with AI. And finally, the fourth possibility of applying AI is for strategic decision. The retailer can even take decisions about which products we need to design for the next season based on the interest that the previous collection has generated in customers. So the possibilities here are endless, and we believe that AI is particularly good for improving all these processes for retailers, because retail stores are complicated. It's a chaotic environment. People take products, move them, steal them. There's a lot of processes of products up and down that make it difficult to track. So applying AI, if we have real-time accurate data, it will be a giant step for retailers. I even think that we could say that in not so many years, the retailers who are able to apply physical AI in their stores will be the ones who will be able to beat their competitors and grow more. And those without will be lag behind and eventually will have problems competing.
Love that. I 100% agree. But one thing that I keep hearing, and maybe Akash, this is a question to you. We keep hearing retailers still struggling with certain basic aspects, right? Like I keep going back to that question, but for instance, there are retailers who are like, oh no, I want my central merchandising guide to be exactly applicable in all stores. Now, all stores are not the same, right? Certain stores, something will work, the other stores, the other things will work. But that autonomy at the store level is hard to give from a retailer's perspective sometimes because they trust their central teams sometimes more than their store teams. Or how do you think this is going to evolve over time?
Yeah, I think we're talking about fairly significant change in kind of process of retailers, which kind of takes time. I think how the retail world operates, and these are all kind of large public companies need to manage their P&Ls in a very very I would say precise way, and hence it becomes challenging to very quickly change something this fundamental in the overall environment, right? So, I think it's just how large changes work. There has to be a lot more real data to prove what we are saying, right? And I'm sure there are, like in any industry or for any large transformation, there will be companies or retailers that would take steps first and kind of be the leaders. Because any of these large transformations come with some, I would say, intermediary risk. Is the organization itself ready to kind of take that level of transformation? Also comes into the place. So yeah, I'm not, I would say, surprised, with the rate at which this is happening. But I think the rate at which the technology use cases as well as the confidence in ROI is maturing, I think this will happen faster than what we would have, imagined. But we still need to understand that there are very large operations that retailers are running, right? And they are set in a certain way. We are saying basically like 70-80% of the processes, the vision that Ramir just described, it would change 70-80% processes in a retailer's world, right? We're talking about changing how designing works to how manufacturing works to how distribution works to how store operations work, right? So you're literally going and changing 70-80% of backbone processes of these retailers, right? So I think we will have to appreciate the amount of change in large organizations with 100, 200, 300,000 people with like a couple of $1 billion of inventory sitting across these stores and warehouses. So yeah, I think it's a large transformation. Will it happen? Absolutely. I think every single retailer will have to go through that transformation. Who will be the ones adopting first? Might see some challenges in, I would say, first couple of years, but will they exponentially race to the finish line on some of these? Absolutely, yes. So yeah, I think it's a typical technology risk and reward function. You can compare it with some of the other transformations happening, for example, using AI for code, right? There are organizations with kind of hundreds and thousands of people, software engineers writing code are transforming into kind of leveraging AI to do it. Is it risky in the beginning? Yes. Like, will does it create challenges in like 6 months time frame? Yes, right. But if you can really truly use AI and kind of 2x 3x your software writing productivity, in a year, will you be completely ahead after a year? Absolutely, yes. Does it come with certain amount of risk? Yes. I think, any of these large transformations, whether in retail or in other places, which has certain amount of immediate like intermediary risk, will have its own kind of curve of kind of maturity and adoption. But yes, I think retailers who are able to kind of take that risk, mitigate the risk correctly, will kind of accelerate their journey to, what we have called AI native fashion brand or likes of that, where the efficiencies can definitely be much, much larger. I can even say that, once that transformation is happening, we are talking about EBITDA moving by multiple kind of 100 base points than anything else for these companies, which will be completely transformational.
Yep. I think this was a great perspective, Akash and Ramir. Ramir, tell us a little bit more about your, the most recent work that you're doing, the most exciting work that you're doing, or anything else that you'd like to share with the audience.
Well, I think that probably one of the most interesting things that we are working on together with Gray Orange is the combination of RFID plus ultra-wideband. We are already testing this in a real store, and we believe that this will enhance many new use cases that will be very, very interesting. We are receiving enormous positive feedback from the market about the interest in this combined solution, because the added cost of ultra wideband is small compared to the benefits it brings, and this is already under test in a store in the US, and next year it will be probably already be available in massive quantities. So I think this is a very interesting step, and we are working in others like the combination with Vision for obtaining automatic planograms of the store, uh, plus other initiatives where we combine together the different technologies, RFID plus Vision, to work together also to enhance customer experience. I think those are the most important things that come to mind, uh, and I would say that probably the combination of all this that we are doing with AI agents is going to become a fantastic multiplier of value for retailers. What we are doing together, Gray Orange and us, if we add the AI layer on top of it, this is going to really revolutionize retail. I think there will be a past completely different from the future that we are approaching to.
Absolutely, absolutely, love that. And Ramir, if anyone wants to talk to you or if anyone wants to connect with you, where can we send them?
Well, they can reach out through our website. We have a contact form, and our website is keonn.com, keonn.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ramir. It was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much, Akash.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.